Hello, welcome to another edition of Athletes Corner. And today we are joined by two special guests. We got Caden and Manny. What is going on? They took the drive after practice to be here. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Oh man, it's a big season coming up for you guys, right?
Big year.
How excited are you guys for the season?
Very exciting because, obviously, being seniors, it's kind of, that last ride, that last journey, last dance, whatever you want to call it. But, throughout all the off-season workouts, camps, all that stuff, just, finally being able to play, I like to say real football, none of that two-hand touch stuff, it's very exciting, you know what I mean? So we're very excited.
Manny, how about you, man?
We got something to prove this season.
Right.
Last season we got cut short by Needham in the playoffs, but I feel like as a team we matured. We got something to prove this season.
And you guys being seniors, going through these last couple years, there's always there's a level of success and there's a level of expectation playing for the program, right? How have you guys just been able to just keep that going? Because last year, a lot of young guys in certain spots, quarterback, you had a young player, right? The most important part of the offense, but he showed a lot of growth throughout the year. But, how were you guys still able to have that success last season, too, with so many young guys playing?
Yeah, I think it starts off with, our coaching staff, being around, forever. Obviously, no more Coach A, but, having Coach Sexton, who's been the offensive coordinator for a while, he's Central Catholic. If you come here and you want to play right away, that's not always the case. But we've always been one of the best teams when it comes to developing our guys. And me and Manny, we played on the freshman team. We weren't one of those kids pulled up to varsity or JV. We played freshman year, and then sophomore year we had minimal playing time on varsity. Had some JV time, and then junior year was that first full year we had that opportunity to start, and then having this year too. So it's all about that development and being patient, waiting for your time to come, because everyone's journey is different. People play right away earlier, people have late bloomers, but I think me and Manny, for our case, it happened at the right time. So we're fortunate to happen. But yeah, it's got to be our coaching staff.
Yeah, for both of you too, how was that too? Like how were you guys able to learn too from those upperclassmen? Going through you guys going through the ranks, as you said, freshman, JV, varsity mixture, right? And you're getting to see those older guys and how they carry themselves, and how they lead practice, and how they work during the off season and in the classroom and all that. So how are you guys able to absorb that and kind of take that in when as you said, you guys' turn is now?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that no matter who you are, whether you get the most reps on varsity, whether you just don't get any reps at all, you're still held to the same expectation. So I'm saying in the classroom, you're not just gonna be joking around with your friends and stuff. You're there to study. You're there to be respectful as a man. You are. But then when it comes to the team stuff, even the same technique, you're still held to that same expectation. I'd say that helped me grow, and I'll say that even the people that have come before me and ahead of me that have led me is, it's more just they don't treat you any different than anyone else. It's more like a family. And even those rides to pasta parties, before games, seniors drove me all the time. And I want to keep that same tradition going.
How about you, Caden?
Yeah, I would always say, for my position, running back and outside linebacker, the guys that have always, been ahead of me have always been very supportive.
Right.
They're, being thrown into that, situation when, it's your first game starting on varsity, my sophomore year, the guys that were around me at that time, they were very, supportive, whether, they allowed me to, ask questions without, being younger. Obviously, sometimes it can feel, you can be nervous or, anxious when it comes to, your assignments, your techniques, what hole to hit, when to make a cut. So, having those guys around me, they always help me. They made me feel relaxed. They made me feel patient. So I would say the guys that were ahead of me were just very supportive in that situation.
Right. And you guys, and as for you guys going through the ranks, you're seeing the progress of yourselves and your play, right? What were those improvements that you saw from freshman year to sophomore year and then to junior year? What were some of the improvements that you both saw in your game and, kind of the evaluations that your coaches gave you guys at the end of each season on how they thought you guys performed?
Yeah, so for me, coming in as a freshman, I was only, my height was around around the same, but, I was only 160 pounds. Like, I came in as a skinnier kid, never really thought that I needed to hit the weight room, just not being mature at the time. So I would say my improvements were definitely my size, putting on more strength and, more muscle. Even right now, I'm around 215 right now. Last year I played at like around 195,
right.
But that strength and muscle, obviously is a little fat, but, that weight getting put on is, good weight where it's helping me elevate my performance. So, and I would also say my mindset too. I mean, I've always had a good mindset because of wrestling, but, freshman year I came in, I was nervous, I didn't know what to expect.
Right,
and then once, I started doing good on the freshman team because, it's freshman football, that mindset, I was starting to feel way more comfortable and way more confident. But then, my sophomore year, I would just always beat myself up because, being that freshman star, I thought I was going to come in, be a first team all conference player right away, which obviously, was delusions at the time. But yeah, I would just say like that mindset of, really like understanding like, hey, I'm the guy, I can do what I want, I'm better than I've been, I'm the strongest, fastest I've been, So I would say, yeah, that mindset and definitely, putting on all that good weight.
Right.
I say for me is the work ethic, Came up freshman year lazy, inconsistent. But then I realized like to get the things you want, it's not just gonna come to you. You gotta work for that.
Right.
You gotta put the time, you gotta put the blood and sweat and tears into that. And there were many nights where I've doubted myself, where like, am I good enough? But at the end of the day, you work and work, and then you keep seeing those little milestones of progress, and you're like, yeah, that's for me, like I can do this, and that's what really pushed me to where I'm at right now.
How important was that to get those reps on the freshman team, just to get the reps in general on freshmen, just being able to play, because you're not going to play varsity, obviously, but just being able to play and understand and learn, and so you could, as you climb the ladder.
Yeah, to start off, so like our freshman team, we run, the similar formation scheme, stuff like that as the varsity. So, you have that. Once you play freshman football, once you go to your sophomore year playing JV or varsity, you already have an understanding of the playbook. So that's one thing. And then, I would say the other thing is just getting on the field and getting more experience. It would be cool to, be varsity as a freshman, but if you're not getting any playing time and you're just, you can say that you're varsity on freshman, I mean, I don't really think that helps you. Mm-hmm. So I think, actually be able to play, football, obviously, freshman's a totally different speed. It's a totally different game than a varsity field. But, just getting like that understanding and, still even just being able to make your cuts, block, get like tackle, work on your technique, I would say is, has helped a lot.
I'll say getting reps is important because like, you come in new school, new friends, like me personally, I left my friends from my old school. Right. So I was like, dang, football's the only thing I got left to me. Like, I need these reps. And, that wasn't true at the time, but then later I realized that like, whether I'm getting reps or not, I'm still a human being, It's not just about football. But then getting those reps and working towards it and getting more on the field, you feel good about yourself and you're like, dang, this can go somewhere.
Right. Did those reps also help you guys in the leadership aspect? Did you get leadership growth just started from there, and then each year you guys just improved on that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, when we came in as freshmen on the freshman team, we were, the leaders of the team, you could say. Obviously there's no freshman captains, but we were, the leaders of the team. So, growing that bond with, because when you play freshman football, like he said, I left my friends at my old school too. So you come in and, the first practice you might not know anyone, or the first lift, but by the time, the first day of school comes, you have a whole lunch table, you have all your friends to sit with, so just playing through that has helped so much.
Yeah, definitely. Take it back a little bit before we get into all the other stuff. But when did you guys start when did the love of the game start for you guys?
You go that first.
I'd say it started in 6th grade. I was a chunky guy. I was 260 around there in 6th grade. Yeah, and I was introduced into like football from a coach that I was working out with. And I was like, oh, flag football? He's like, nah, tackle football. You got size for that, And so it was more the first week I've done it. It was like, dang, like it's hard to move, cleats burning, like feet moving, the sun's blazing eyes. And then I just realized like when the pads come on, like I always love the bond you get with it. Whether you're suffering, having fun with someone at the same time, you still build a stronger bond with them.
Right.
And I feel like that's where I still got most of my friends from Pop Wander days here. And now, there are other stuff, I still communicate every now and then. But I really fell in love with the fact that you can actually get a bond with someone and while working it through it,
Right.
Yeah, and then for me, I started earlier, so I started in first grade. I played for Methuen Pop Warner. So Methuen has been, they've always been a good Methuen. Obviously, their high school has been good too, but that Pop Warner team and that that organization has always been very good.
Right.
But yeah, I started in first grade because I may not be I'm the biggest guy right now compared to all these big linemen, but at that time I was a big boy, so I was a center. I was playing everything on the line, and at first when my parents first tried to get me to do sports, I would they would put me in soccer. I didn't like that. Baseball, I didn't like that.
Right.
So they put me in football, and at first I was scared. I didn't want to hit people, but once I realized like, hey, I'm a big boy, and I started hitting people, I fell in love with the sport. So, playing at that young age and, still, playing it, right now as a senior, that love for the game has only been growing, which I'm grateful to have, because I know a lot of kids, as you once again, like your 6th year, your 7th year of, playing football, sometimes the love of the game goes away because, it might feel like a job now to you because you're just used to the same thing every year. But, I'm fortunate enough to have that love still.
Right, because it's also kind of like you kind of see, as you say, your parents put you in a lot of. Did your parents do the same with you?
Yeah, they put me like basketball, baseball,
Yeah.
Right, so that's kind of like the good thing though, that your parents put you in all the sports until you just figure out which one you wanted to stick with. And being that you stuck with football, right, and you're going through the Pop Warner phase, right? When did you kind of realize that okay, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad of a player. Was there a moment that you both realized that during those early days?
Yeah, I would say for me, it would probably be around my 6th grade year, because I was playing tight end at that time, and I was pretty good at running for my size and catching the ball. Mm-hmm. And then I would also say when I realized like I could really actually be pretty good was, I would say my 8th grade year when I was playing on Methuen Pop Warner. And at first, I was playing quarterback because at the time we needed someone at the beginning of the year. Yeah. And then, we got another guy, so they put me at running back in this one scrimmage, and I started to do good when everyone else was struggling. So that's when I realized, like, hey, running back might be my position. And, I realized that, hey, maybe if I, start, training this in the off season, put on more weight, that could actually be, pretty good.
Right.
I'll say for me, it was freshman year of high school. That's when everything clicked. It was like I got the opportunity to perform, and I got all these reps, and I was like, you know what, I can actually do something with this, and it could take me far wherever I want to go.
Right. How much does the coaching play a factor at that early age too, in that development phase, right? How much appreciative are you for those coaches that kind of took you guys in and were able to kind of show you guys the proper techniques, the right thing to do on the field, and so you don't hurt yourself, and two, you have a better understanding how to be productive on the field.
Yeah, my coaches in Methuen, they were great. One thing is I had a very good relationship with them. Not just on the field, just as a human being. Mm-hmm. So, I really got to trust them. So building that trust is like, hey, now if they're telling me to do that, I think that they're right, having that trust. So, those guys, those coaches have always been, great to me. I still talk to them, when I see them in public. And, like I said, like they had me out, they were my coach, in first grade, and then they were my coach in 6th grade, and even up to 8th grade they were there. So, I think that trust, and obviously, those coaches were just good. They knew football. Right. So I think having them, at that young age really like molded it into my brain to, carry on in my high school career.
I'll say for me, I played for Lawrence Pop Warner. I started off with Coach Sean and Coach Noah, his son. And I say that it wasn't really just the technique part. It was more like teaching you future lessons for your life,
Right.
It wasn't just like, oh, this is how you gotta block someone, but it's like you gotta make smart decisions. Cause we grew up in Lawrence,
right.
Surrounded by, whatever, but they always kept people out of trouble, I can always text them whenever I needed something, they'll be there.
Right.
I can give them a call, even now, like I just committed the other day, they called me, they said, congrats, I'm proud of you, you've come a long way, And I think that not just the technique wise, but having someone there that you can talk to whenever you need someone, that's more important to me.
Definitely. Caden, playing all those positions, how did that help you offensively as far as like seeing defenses and understanding defenses? Because you was on the line, you was tight end, you was running back, you was a quarterback. So you played all those positions up until the point you got to high school, right? So how did that help you? How does that still help you to this day?
Yeah, definitely helps a lot because when every position you have a different perspective. So I also played a lot on the defense, so I think the defensive part helped even more because, playing linebacker, playing D-line, I know what when a running back's running at me, what I don't want them to do. So, hey, when I'm running the ball and I see a linebacker, hey, he probably doesn't want me to hit a little move. He would rather me just run straight at him. So playing all those positions just gives you, a more just like a clear mindset of, hey, understanding what your opponent, doesn't want you to do or maybe wants you to do, but, also just the techniques of, when to hit that hole, when to bounce it outside, So I would say all those positions, just being, around is just helping my IQ, even more. So it definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, and for you, Manny, being on the O-line and the D-line, right? You're in the trenches all game. You're in the trenches all game playing both ways, right? How are you able just to keep yourself in well shape to play? Because those two positions are not the easiest position on the field. Because those are the only positions that there's constant contact on each play.
Yeah, I would say that it's more, the hard work ethic part. The ethic into it. It's like, I play defensive line. That's what I'm going to college for. But it's more like, what does the team need? Like, we're short on O-linemen. Like, I'm going to fill that spot and get the team to a better place of success.
Right.
And even if it's just extra workouts, in the summer, if it's just extra sprinting. But another thing is that the linemen hold each other accountable too. If you mess up because you're tired, that's not an excuse.
Right.
And it's just that's how the line is. And then we just build a bond together to the point where we hold each other to an expectation. And if we drop it, you're going to get yelled at by one of us. Not even the coaches got to step in. It's just us helping each other to get to a better place and a better set and a better mindset into where you can be like, all right, I can do this.
Right, definitely. This offseason was a big offseason for the both of you, right?
Yeah.
Caden, you went through a lot of camps, a lot of showcases. You started getting those recruitments, and a lot of college coaches started giving you a lot more attention, right? Just how helpful were all those showcases that you attended this year?
Yeah, they definitely help depending on your situation. So for me, when I got my first Division I offer at Davidson, I didn't even have to go to a camp. That was just off my film and talking to my coaches and people in the area. So obviously, like I said, every situation is different. So for some people, they need to go to a camp because maybe a coach tells them, we got to see a little more in person, which is totally fine. But for me, when it came to choosing my camps, it took a lot of questions asking those coaches, because I don't want to just go to a camp where the coach has no intention of giving me an offer. You know what I mean? So I'm making sure that I'm asking those hard questions to those coaches of where I'm at on their board. But like I said, it definitely helps. I've been fortunate to I have 9 total offers right now between one Division I, one Division II, and then 7 NESCAC schools, which are like mini Ivy leagues, like the schools like Amherst and Tufts. So the showcases definitely help, because like I said, if coaches need to see a little more of you in person, if you go there, ball out, then that check gets, now it's the next step from there.
Right.
But they definitely help if you're in the right situation in the coach's eyes.
Right. And you're going into the season. You have your college.
Yeah, I'm already set.
You're already set, right? How much easier is that for you to play this season, that you don't got to worry about where you're gonna pick to go to play football on the next level, right?
Yeah. When I say I was talking to Caden earlier about this, I'm stress free, I already know where I'm going. Well, I say that when I committed, it was more support from other coaches, because they want you to succeed with your senior season, and of course they want you to get on their roster and commit. But it's more like, now that I already got the college stuff out of the way, I can actually focus on the senior season. I ball out myself, and I would set up my team for success. That's what I was saying.
Well, just let everybody know what school you are attending to next fall.
I'm going to Bates College in Maine.
Oh my God, you're gonna be up there, up there in the cold.
He's the one who put me on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey man, see, looking out for
Very good school. Very good school.
Yeah.
Now I know a couple people that are alums from that school. They love their time up there, but I just couldn't do that whole you're just way up there. But I mean, the bright side, you could go to Canada and come back if you feel like
if I
it.
wanted to.
Right.
A little trip,
Right. Nice little day trip. The season, actually, we're like a week away. After this Friday, it'll be a week away from the start of the season, right? You guys playing a tough conference as it is, the Merrimack Valley Conference, and then your non-conference schedule this season. Every year it's a brutal one, but this year it's even, the coaches ramped it up a lot more, right? You're playing the likes of Xaverian, St. John's Prep as usual, BC High, right? Playing some of those Catholic conference schools, but how big is that for you guys? Because I know last year it was similar, the same thing, and And all those games you guys were in it. You know,
Yeah,
it was like all those games you guys were in it. I mean, even if you were down 2-3 touchdowns early, it was like it'll come down to a possession here, possession there. What did you guys learn from those games last season that's helped you guys in this offseason in preparation for the season?
Yeah, I would say, a big reason why we lost those games. I mean, obviously there's mistakes everywhere, and mistakes are just bound to happen no matter how hard you practice, no matter how well you practice. But I would just say, the mental part of, obviously as the time goes on, you start to get that, like we used to say, that wear and tear where your body starts to hurt, and now it gets on your mind where you're like, oh, like I'm tired, I don't want, like whatever. But I would just say, ramping up the reps, I would say, because like I said, mistakes are bound to happen, but the more reps you get, but also the better reps you get, the more like very good reps you get, I would say lowers the chances of having those mistakes that happen in the late games. Like when we played St. John's, there was a miscommunication in a coverage that we were in that happened, and then when we played Zavarian, there was the same thing. So just being in those games, and I would also say just hating that feeling of just being right there, and then like knowing that, hey, Zavarian, they just won state. They're a very good team. We only lost them by a touchdown. We were just right there. So I would just say, that feeling of, oh, come on, we were right there is really, it still hits us today, though, especially those guys that have been around. And, when we realize how good this team could actually be, our team this year, we don't want to be in that same situation. We would rather be on the winning side.
Right. And two key guys, too, on the offense, Caden and Drew, those two guys, they have a really good connection, but those two guys were really, really key last season in making big plays, especially Caden just being thrown in that fire. He had to learn on the fly, and he handled it pretty well. I mean, what do you guys think? What did you guys see from him in practice that you had the confidence that by the time midseason comes around, he'd have everything under control?
Want me to go?
Yeah, you got that.
I think it's his confidence, he comes out there, he locks in immediately. Out of practice, he's someone you could joke around with, make jokes with. But when it comes to practice, he takes it serious. Every rep, every single rep he takes, it's just concentrated. He thinks and thinks. And then he also, he expects a standard from you, even from the older guys. He might be he might be younger than us, but he's still the QB. He's still got to lead his offense. But I say that he holds everyone to an expectation, and just the confidence he has, it just helps him and sets him up for success.
Right. And also this season, you guys are in that Merrimack conference. You guys are playing more Merrimack conference teams because it's a full Merrimack conference schedule, right? Yeah. You're going to see the teams that you haven't played in a while, right?
Right.
So how also intriguing is that for you guys, schedule-wise? Because you guys, we always got to talk about the rankings, and
course,
once October hits around, that's when you just really got to start paying attention to it. Just being in a strong conference, the benefits of that.
Yeah, definitely. Like the new teams, for example, Methuen. Like I said, I used to play for Methuen Pop Warner, so I know all of those guys. Even Manny, I've introduced him to all those guys, and he's known some of them from just being on the Lawrence Pop Warner team. But like a team like Methuen that, last time the varsity played them was our freshman year. So, getting that look against them, and, obviously I know those guys. I'll be on the phone with them tonight, trash talking and, just having a normal conversation with them. But like I said, Merrimack Valley is a very tough conference. Like I said, Methuen, then also Andover is a very big game because, obviously, Coach Fielding, we have respect for him. He did his thing at Central, and I'm sure he's going to do his thing at Andover. Right. So, obviously, we want to beat him that game, but, off the field, he's a guy that he's a role model for us. We talk to him all the time on the phone, over text, and then also Coach Clifford, our O-line coach that used to coach at Central, he went with Coach Fielding to Andover, so another guy that we have respect for. So looking forward to, specifically playing against Methuen and Andover. But, we know any game in the MVC, it's a make or break game, and there's always, some backstory to it. It's like, I like to say it's like, like the NESCAC teams, like the Ivy League, where it's like, Harvard always wants to beat Yale. Yale always wants to beat Princeton. Columbia always wants to beat Dartmouth. They're all teams that just always have good games and just always want to beat each other.
Definitely. And let the folks know, too, who you guys opened the season with.
Yeah, so we're actually going to New York on the first Saturday of September against Archbishop Stepinac. They're a team in New York. I know that they have historically been one of the best teams in New York. I know, like, recently they've kind of had, a down year, but we know they're a tough team. They have a bunch of kids that I've seen on Twitter X that have have been some good college looks. I've been to camps that kids have been there, but so yeah, we're making that drive to New York on that Saturday. So we're going down there, and we know
upstate New York or New York City.
Upstate.
White Plains.
Yeah, White Plains.
White Plains, all Queens.
Yeah,
that's Queens.
So we're making that. We're looking forward to going there and on that bus ride down, we're gonna be locked in, but on the way back, hopefully celebrating after a big win.
This is the first out of state game for the school in a while.
Yeah, and then we have another one week 4. Week 4, right? Yeah.
Bishop Hendrickson.
Bishop
That's
Hendrickson.
Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, they're coming to us at Lawrence. So I think they're the state champs in Rhode Island.
Yeah, they are.
They got some good kids there. So another one where we don't have to make that trip. Obviously, it's not as far as Stepinac, but we're looking forward. Just getting out of state, doesn't really hurt us if we lose them.
Right.
But obviously, we don't want to lose them. We want to beat them because in their state, they're good. So it's having that bragging rights too. Mass versus New York, Mass versus Rhode Island. Yeah,
it's always good to play out of state schools too. Just to see different programs and what kind of offense and defense they run like that. So that's always good to see, right? September. What's it? September 6th or September? September.
I think September 6th. Yeah.
September 6th, man. High school football starts a week from Friday. Well, probably starts a week from Thursday, but there's gonna be games all over Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So make sure you tap in, man. Let the people know where they could find you guys on social media if they want to, get in contact and all that good stuff. And also plug in the team's social media page too if they want to know more about the team.
Yeah, you can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, or Instagram at Caden G Chase.
Or you can find me on Twitter, Emmanuel Lizardo, or on Instagram, Manny Lizardo.
And then you can just look up on anything, Central Catholic football, Central Catholic athletics, our social media team, they post everything, they're good at it. So, definitely keep your eyes out on us. I think we're going to be, if one of the best teams in the state, if not the best, but it should be a good year, keep our heads down and working.
Yeah, I think the rankings came out, I think the Globes had you guys in the top 10, I think, or somewhere in the top 20?
I saw one ranking where we were it was including every division, and we were 5th, I think. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, the rankings are cool.
Rankings.
Well, they'll let you know of just the expectations.
They're just cool to see, but at the end of the day, we don't care about them. We're just gonna go out and play.
Yeah. It's definitely should be a good season. There's definitely some excitement with you guys, especially from what everybody saw last year, and that losing, and that was the quarterfinals to right. In that game, what do you think you guys? What do you think you guys just didn't have that game to get over that hump? Because like you guys said, you guys were in every game too, and that was another situation where you guys, were right there with them. They ended up going to the state title game but losing, but you guys were right there with them too.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, most of our games, even those games where we were close, we didn't win. Like when we played Xaverian, when we played St. John's, those games, they were close at half, tied. Either we're winning, losing by one possession, or like I said, tied. But that second half, we came out in those games even better than we were in the first half. Right. But when we played Needham, that first half, I think we were down by a touchdown or it was tied. But when we came out of halftime, everyone was pumped up, but our mindset didn't correlate with how we played on the field. Yeah. We just weren't the same team like how we were in the second half. Right. So I would say, just that second half was really that killed us. Yeah.
Right. And also, and then going into this year is so many teams got a chance to make it to Gillette Stadium, so it's kind of there's no clear-cut favorite going into this season. So that gives more room for excitement too when there's and all the teams that people think should make it. Everybody is loaded with talent, so it's there's gonna be no easy task to get into Gillette Stadium when postseason comes around. That's why we play the game, folks. That's why we play the game. Yep. Fellas, thank you for coming by.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I will see you guys. I don't know which game.
Hopefully a game. Hopefully.
Well, I'll be at the Xaverian game for sure. I'll be at that one for sure. But I'll be at the Xaverian game. I'll be at the prep game. and probably the game against Bishop Hendrickson. But those 3 for sure.
Hopefully we get some, post-game interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Winning post-game interviews.
Yeah, had some. Yeah, last year wasn't good.
Yeah, there was some. Yeah, we had some like Franklin and you had another one.
I was at Franklin.
Chelmsford. We got Chelmsford maybe. You were at.
Was I at Chelmsford? Was that a shootout with Chelmsford?
Well,
I'm sure it's like 46 or like 30.
Because I know the first game.
Yeah, I was at the first game. Springfield. So I was at Springfield Central.
Okay, yeah. And then you had another one because I remember the first one that we won. You interviewed me and the other Caden, and then the other one I think it was Caden and Jefferson. So I don't know which one that was, but.
Which one was that game?
I don't. Was it?
Was that
I know Jefferson, bro. Jefferson went crazy that
Haverhill?
game.
Was it Haverhill?
No.
No. He had like 3 touchdowns that game.
Andover? No.
No, it wasn't Andover.
Was it at home?
It was at home.
Oh.
It was at home. Why?
Was it Weymouth?
No.
No. It wasn't Weymouth.
I think it was Haverhill.
Haverhill.
I think it was Haverhill.
Yeah.
It might have been Haverhill or Chelmsford.
It was Haverhill or Chelmsford. I think it was
one of those. It's one of those two.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It's one of those two.
Yeah.
And I'm 90% sure it was Chelmsford.
It probably was Chelmsford. Yeah.
But anyways, go on to YouTube. The game's
The game is there.
Yeah, the game's there on YouTube. So if you want to know what we talk about, you guys been watching Athletes Corner. We're out of here.